So, welcome to another episode of Beta Talk. I'd like to thank the Guild patrons who sponsor Beta Talk, and they are Payaka, Primary Pro, ESB, the Wolsey Renewable Centre, UK Radiators, and Castrads. Now, today I've got Chris Bernkopf on from Podero, the CEO of Podero, and I've got with him Zach Curtis from E.ON, who's the innovation lead at E.ON for something called Next Gen Home, and I'm going to let them explain exactly what Next Gen Home is. It sounds quite exciting. It sounds like an energy as a service thing, which if you're regularly listening to this podcast, I was talking about this a good number of years ago, especially with people from Energy System Catapult. So welcome to the show, guys. Zach, you're from E.ON, and like I've just introduced there, you're doing something called Next Gen Home. So I suppose if you just elucidate or give us a synopsis about what that's all about.
Yes, absolutely. So Next Gen Home is a small scale trial of your right and energy as a service proposition, where for no money up front, we hope to be able to encourage the adoption of low carbon assets, heat pumps, batteries, inverters, solar panels, and if wanted, EV chargers to homes in time across the UK. One of the challenges that we've experienced is that customers are willing to drive their own sustainable behaviors. They're willing to um, do things which future-proof their homes, but they'd rather focus on getting a low energy bill. And then sustainable behaviors will come if we make it super simple for them. So energy as a service generally, meaning no money up front, single fixed price for their energy and assets included, means that we can deliver those things. We can deliver low carbon behaviors, and we can provide a reasonably priced bill as well.
So that's obviously been one of the barriers, hasn't it? So the upfront cost has obviously been a bit of a barrier for all sorts of people, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for most homes, I mean, mine included, and I'm sure lots of the listeners as well, trying to find around £18,000 to install all of those measures is really challenging. Not many people have £18,000 lying around. I know I certainly don't. So yeah, finding a way of providing it with no upfront cost in a meaningful way would be the goal.
And Chris, your company provides the very, very clever technical, and I'm not technical by any stretch of the imagination, software and platform that can sort of bring all this technology together so it works seamlessly. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're sort of the control piece to the proposition. So of course the financing in the energy comes from E.ON, from Zach, and then we provide the asset control. So that means essentially we integrate with the different OEMs. So your electric vehicle charger, electric vehicle, the inverter, the battery, the heat pump. We then read data from those devices every few seconds, every few minutes. And then we figure out what the best way to use energy is in order to reduce those bills. So that means essentially using more energy when it's cheap, and less energy when it's expensive relative to the day, so that we can, optimally use energy throughout the household, depending, of course, on the season. If you're producing high amounts of solar or not, that changes as well.
And this sort of pertains to the sort of flexibility piece that a lot of my colleagues talk about, doesn't it? So it helps the grid
Yeah,
as
exactly.
the
So
homeowners, isn't it?
Part of the, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Part of
exactly.
the
So that's, sorry.
Sorry, Chris. Part of the goal of providing a single fixed price for a customer, which includes the pay down of the assets, but also optimized energy, is then shifting your energy use out of peak automatically by the use of the battery based on certain conditions, which Chris can go into.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess the you can in general divide between a few different ways you can earn those revenues. So first you have the shifting of energy out of the peaks. So that means charging your car at night, or run a heat pump in the middle of the day when prices are cheaper. The second, generate arbitrage earnings. So the energy market is sort of like stock market, where essentially you can say, well, I'll buy energy at 2, I'll sell it at 4, and potentially if the prices are right, you can make a profit. And then the third thing is we can balance the grid. And so that means essentially that when the grid is under a lot of strain, you can get paid to reduce or increase energy consumption, and thus there's another revenue streams. And all these together, of course, then reduce the customer's bills.
So when you say a fixed price, Zach, if with Chris's software platform, we're bringing costs, running costs down. Does the customer see that, or do they pay a fixed monthly price? That's always a flat fixed price, and then obviously, if you manage to sort of get energy cheaper, you guys your end, that's sort of seen your end. How does that work?
Yeah. So the the product is modeled on a particularly complex modeling, as you can imagine. And the goal for us of that optimization that Chris described is to try and maintain that fixed price. Sometimes it'll be over, sometimes under, but over the course of the term, typically 10 years, then we should even out. We have built in a buffer to make sure that we don't, but the goal is not about the energy company or Podero making huge amounts of profit. It's actually about trying to give the customer as lower price as possible by optimizing those assets. So everything that Chris's company does goes towards trying to maintain that fixed price, and the customer just pays that fixed price. The challenge, perhaps, is in trying to provide something which is completely bespoke for every customer. So it's not like there's one price for next gen home for all people. The pricing is based on your previous energy usage and how
Mm.
you experience energy in the home, and then we model it based on that. And then, of course, as Chris said, weather predictions and future energy predictions and day ahead wholesale pricing, etc.
Like I said, Chris, I'm not technical at all. Is that quite a hard thing to do with all you coding engineers and software? Is it quite a hard thing to do and manage?
Yeah, I guess the complexity comes, as Zach mentioned, as having the right fit and the right optimization, the right device control per home, because of course every house is different. So, as Zach mentioned, it starts with the forecasting, understanding how a person uses energy, when they drive their car, when they charge, what charge level, when they heat, how much warmer they use, and all these things fused together in a software model that predicts. And based on that, we then overlay that with the price forecasts and information on what E.ON thinks the markets will do. And then out of that comes a custom steering solution or asset optimization solution, if you will, for every device. Now we rerun this optimization every 15 minutes, and in some cases every 1 minute. So every house is steered live and bespoke. And that of course adds complexity. Now you also have to deal with different OEM brands. So of course there's probably 20 major car brands, and the same for heat pumps and inverters. So there's complexity in being compatible with all of them, and also having the right control surfaces, so being allowed to send the right commands, and that's sort of the main technical complexity we try to simplify for utilities, but also of course for the end user. In the end, of course, AI does help a lot, especially building all these integrations and edge cases, but we still have a lot of engineers to get it done.
And I suppose your assets, you need to be able to communicate with your assets, so that you do that through API, do you? And
Exactly. So there's do it. One is via a gateway, and one is via API. Now the gateway, it's for us quite challenging to install. We had a gateway previously, but we then discontinued it about 2 years ago, just because the setup, where there's additional cost of buying the hardware, then you have to set it up. If something breaks, it's usually quite challenging to fix it without going to the home. And the API, of course, relies on the OEMs, which have already, installed an app at the customer's house. So you might have your Tesla app, or you have your, Huawei app, and so there's already an existing working interface in the home. And then we can just tag along with the OEM. So it's much easier to do via API. One, it doesn't cost anything to set up. It's much quicker, just email and password to authenticate to log in. And then, of course, you can rely on the OEM to actually improve the service over time. Whereas at the gateway, it's all on us. And we're also actively, in some cases, competing with what the OEM wants to do by themselves.
I mean, back in the day, I think it was quite hard for people to access the APIs of sort of certain heat pump manufacturers. I think heat pump manufacturers have realised it's actually now beneficial for them to actually work with people like yourselves that sort of require that data. I mean, are there? So you've had a trial, didn't you, Zach? You started a trial back last year, I think, in summer, where 20 homes. You've been trialing this with. Tell us about that. And also, do you use particular manufacturers for your particular assets, like your batteries and your solar and your heat pumps?
Yeah. So you're right. We started last year with, well, we started planning long before that. This whole thing started as part of a DESNES trial between us and some other companies. And an opportunity became apparent that this could be a new product for E.ON. And there's very few energy as a service type products out there at the moment
Mm,
because it's so difficult to do. And there's
mm,
different policies and challenges which make it largely impossible. And that's what definitely drew me to it and trying to do the impossible. So it's currently 18 homes being installed. Well, they've been installed, sorry. The install started back in June. The last one finished on the 2nd of March. So we were really taking our time to make sure we actually got it right. And those installs, whilst they are live in market now, and those customers, real homes in and around Coventry and the Midlands, um, are on their own customized fixed price, all asset, plus or minus the EV charger, being optimized by Chris's company, Podero. We ha we have to be clear that it is a small scale trial. So the goal of it is to test some very particular things. So it's not about is it commercially viable? Are we saving customers thousands of pounds? That will come at a bigger scale. Right now, we're really trying to test. I think you could probably say it's three things, really. The first part we're trying to test with just these small 18 customer trial is, do customers want it? Are customers willing to sign up to a fixed price tariff? Can we deliver it? Because if you can imagine, installing a heat pump is already complex and challenging, as you know, Nathan. And small things can go wrong. But can we install all assets, all measures over a shortened period, maybe 5 days for all at once? That's a lot of techs and engineers on site. And how can we do it by making the customer still feel comfortable so that they're willing to engage and carry on with the product? And the third thing is, Chris, can we optimize those things together to ensure that we can maintain that fixed price, but also ensure that customers understand what's going on with that optimization? Because it's quite a new thing, even for a lot of customers who already have some of these measures involved. Now, whilst you could let me carry on forever now, Nathan, but whilst that trial is in place and whilst customers appear to like it, I mean, right now, the desirability measures that we're testing show that there's a plus 56 NPS score. So yes, small scale, 18 customers, but that's 11 promoters out of those, three passive and two detractors. And I'll be completely upfront. The detractors have actually come from, for them, a challenging install. It's a BAU install. So it's not that they don't like energy as a service. They had a bad experience of the install itself. So then it's how do we win them back? How do we make sure that we gain their trust back again and demonstrate the benefit of Next Gen Home as a whole? And actually, the other interesting thing that we've learned from those 18 customers is that in the monthly comfort pulse that we have with them, of the 12 that responded to last month's pulse, 11 out of 12 rated their home as comfortable, very comfortable.
mm.
So, you know, if the goal is we provide you with a warm, comfortable home, and you don't need to think about anything. We make it simple for you to shift carbon, to make sure you're actually driving the right pricing, to make sure that your pricing itself is simple, just for a warm, comfortable home. I think we've succeeded. But there's something else, Nathan, and that is that this is all retrofit.
Mm.
As I mentioned, in and around Coventry in the Midlands, linked to our partnership with the with Coventry City Council. We are also now testing a 6 home demo with social housing. So
Mhm.
that the first install is happening in 2 weeks' time. And the goal of that is that the cost of the assets is being taken away and paid for elsewhere, and the social housing tenant will therefore get an optimized service commodity wrapper placed over the top. Same deal, fixed price, customized to their previous energy usage. But of course, that then will be a low bill home because the cost of the assets is stripped out of the deal.
Mm. Yeah, I can see social housing going for this in a big way, but once we're all there with doing the tweaks of getting it to exactly where we need to get it to, it'd be a
Mm,
good benefit for social housing.
yeah.
With sort of customers at the moment that are in their homes and they've adopted this battery technology and solar, and let's say heat pumps as well. Some of the real sort of geeky people I know, homeowners that have got this technology. What they're very interested in is how much electricity are they putting back to the grid, and etc. etc. Now, I suppose for your customers, they kind of won't be thinking like that because but that it's just going on in the background for them, is it? They're just getting that monthly bill, so it takes all the pressure off of knowing what they're going to be paying. They've just got that monthly thing that comes out. They probably aren't going to be concerned as much about things like that, are they? I presume.
Funny you should say that because we actually have some unexpected learnings here. Because my assumption was that if we say to customers, good news, we can make comfort in your home easy. You just pay us a fixed price, which you see in advance, you're happy with, it's customized to you, and that's all you need to do. Just pay the bill, and then your home is warm. You can see all of these things around you. They're doing their job. No, it turns out that customers need to understand what the system is doing. They need something visible. They won't just trust that we're doing the right thing by them. And I guess why it matters is because automation without visibility, it sort of erodes confidence in what we're doing, even when performance is fine. And actually, there is a benefit to having something visible so that they can see that their energy retailer is doing something for them. Then we're not just sitting back and
Mm.
twiddling our thumbs, which leads on to Chris. Because apart from during the install process that we've had, we've redesigned the HEMS onboarding and changed the way that we do that. But Chris has enabled us to have a platform, which he can tell us about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's of course the sort of user interface that we provide. So you have an app in the App Store, the iOS in the Android app, in the Android Store, the Google Store, and of course web. But actually, there's been a couple of feature requests from Zach in the last months, which we've been very happy to add. So of course, it's important to be able to connect to the device easily. You enter your email and password, and then you're done. You see the device in the app. You then see all the device's data. So we monitor the device and show you what's going on. You can see the savings, which of course is nice to see that we're actually optimizing. But also, of course, you need to communicate when things don't go well. So you basically need to say, hey. For example, today we weren't able to save you money because of reason X. Or even just to say, today you charged your car at work. At work, we can't optimize because it's a different, electricity contract, different electricity bill. So your car was charged, but, we didn't have anything to do with it. And just to have the transparency of what's going on, often positive, often neutral, sometimes negative. Hey, for example, you need to reconnect your device for this or that reason. And to provide not only the visibility, but also to have an active communication of what's going on to reassure the user, we're taking care of everything. We will know when things are happening, and to basically provide sort of to be the friendly helper that is, as Zach says, not twiddling their thumbs in the office.
Do they get like is it all done via phone app, or do they get like a smart meter where they can see what's going on, from that visual aspect, or is it all on their phone or computer?
Yes, it's on their phone and computer. I think the learning we have made over the last years is that over 90% of users want to do this on their phone. It mirrors the existing app interactions they have. When they sort of, say you have an EV charger, you want to change the charging limits. Please charge until 90% and not 80%. That's usually done via the phone. And so we basically want to tag along and tag onto this existing behavior and say, well, now you can not only do these interactions, at every different part of your energy system and every different app that you have, but we can centralize a lot of those interactions in the same app that, of course, has the E.ON brand with it, so that we essentially, try to unify all these disparate energy actions that you do throughout the day and throughout the week. So that you have one place where you go to, what's going on, everything's fine. You can change the most important settings, and then it's only a click away.
Are you guys, Zach, as a utility, are you guys kind of first to market with this sort of thing?
I I would, whenever I do any talks about Next Gen Home, I always slightly tongue in cheek say that this is the first of its kind in the UK. But of course, I caveat it with a lot of other things like this is the first of its kind, all asset, fully optimized, single fixed price, commodity included, energy as a service proposition. But the reality is that other companies in the UK have done energy as a service trials. Octopus did a great one. Tomato, of course, had something similar. I don't think either of those, I might be wrong, I don't think either of those optimized EV at the same time. And we go direct to EV, and of course, we have the charger. There are other smaller companies who do great jobs, and I can't call out all of them, but Wonderwall also is doing some fascinating things in this space, including whole home automation and IoT-based devices, which I think is a fascinating direction. So there are others, but I think that we might be the first UK retailer to really try and drive forwards an all-asset option, and we will be doing bundled options as well, so different asset mixes. Probably the other thing to say is that part of the goal for E.ON of making new energy work, or what we're calling making new energy work, is trying to put these low carbon assets into the hands of as many homes as possible in a way which is simple and low cost for them. So this seems like a natural way to do it.
I mean, the reason I asked is because I've had Wonderwall on actually, and obviously I'm sort of always talking about this sort of sector, and I did think to myself, yeah, I think you are, by being able to offer everything what you are offering, I think you are first. I mean, just to sort of mention, because there's going to be, I mentioned to you earlier that there's going to be a lot of my listeners thinking, oh, Nathan's got E.ON on. Are they going to talk about the OVO thing? But Zach and I and Zach's team of people, we arranged this podcast a few months ago, way before that news announcement. So we're obviously here to talk about what the next gen home. It is called the next gen home, isn't it? Zach, I've got that right, isn't it?
It is called Next Gen Home, and I can just speak to OVO very briefly, only to say that right now it's still early days. The main thing that is in our mind is keeping things as stable and simple as possible for both E.ON's customers and OVO's customers. And there won't be any change for the time being, but I suspect in the future this will only be a good thing, both for the energy industry and I think for things like proposition and innovation development generally, because OVO has some great products, as does E.ON.
Now, I think one of the benefits, because I obviously talk to lots of people, well, sort of friends I knew from school that don't know what I've been doing for the last sort of 10 years, and I sort of chat to them about what I do. And then they tell me, oh, yeah, I'm quite interested in PV and I've heard about batteries and EVs. But of course, it then comes to the cost. They can't afford to put this in as much as they're not, I don't so they're desperate for, they're definitely not desperate for it, but they're very interested in it. They're, now that their energy bills have gone up. So that whole fixed price thing is quite appealing for some people I know. Now, are you able to sort of give people, well, I was going to say, can you give an indication of what it would cost? But like you've just mentioned, it's bespoke to everyone's property and their previous energy usage, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's, yeah, yeah.
it is. In the 18 home trial, customers are paying slightly more than they were last year, but I had to be frank, my goal is it it has to be, I think, as at best the same price that they were paying last year, and ideally less. People are focused rightly on trying to lower as much of their household cash flow as they possibly can. And even though they're getting all of these assets included, I have to find a way, either through optimization or other measures, to try and make sure that this is as good a value as possible. There's a couple of other points on it as well. The first part is that in some ways, for me, the goal of this is not just getting these assets into people's homes and optimizing them to or orchestrating them together to try and provide a good service. The goal really is in trying to change the way that customers view their energy usage. Customers don't lie in bed at night thinking about kilowatt hours. We might, perhaps, but customers generally don't think about lying in bed thinking about kilowatt hours or joules or anything else. They think about, okay, does my energy work? Do my assets work? Do I have a warm, comfortable home? If I do, then great. So in some ways, the customer value proposition is what else can we do beyond just giving the assets, providing the energy and a single fixed price. So it might be anything else that's linked in the future towards comfortable homes. It might be discounts with home appliance companies or sustainable home appliance companies or something like that, which might lead to then a bigger proposition, which is E.ON provides a warm, comfortable home. Not just warm, also comfortable in whatever guise that might take. Now, the second part is as we're looking to scale up, two of the biggest challenges of scaling up are moving beyond the all asset installation that we've done for the trial to particular bundles for customers that work for their home. And Nathan, you're heavily experienced in heating, so you might, of course, shoot me down on this. But what we found so far is that 80% of the potential trialists we analyzed raised concerns about the heat pump specifically around the size, the space required, noise levels, pipework disruption, any energy savings and guarantees of that. And also what we've experienced is that, of course, heat pumps, whilst great, and we are firm believers in heat pumps, they're not suitable for all homes, just a lot of homes. So then how can I do energy as a service in flats? How can I do energy as a service in really tight mid-terraced houses where I'd have to crane a heat pump over the top, which isn't always cost effective? So of course, in the MVP, I'm looking at other measures as well. So that might be those smaller heat pumps. We don't need to name the brands, but the smaller heat pumps that you might be able to have single room and a single room, and they can talk together and I can optimize them. Or it might be some sort of infrared solution that we can't optimize, but it could be a low electricity option to add into the heating as well, or it could be electric boilers for hot water. So we're looking at getting the right mix, which might be battery alone, battery and solar, battery solar heat pump, battery and heat pump, or the whole shebang with a bolt-on of EV charger as well. So the benefit of that is it will, I believe, open up to a great big market sizing of 680,000 homes if we have the right mix for the right home at the right price.
Yeah, and we're seeing now across Europe that a lot of the the things that maybe 2 or 3 years ago were considered impossible. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning connectivity was not as impossible maybe 3, 4 years back. We're seeing now at the price of just standalone home batteries that are even that you can plug into the socket, are getting to a price point where it makes sense to roll them out via energy as a service to a lot of customers, where traditionally wasn't the case. So if you look at a battery you bought maybe 10 years ago, the price is reduced so dramatically that for the first time you can offer something for not the sort of relatively wealthy household consumer, but also for the vast majority of people that don't live in a nice house where everything can be customized, modified, where it's not a problem if you change something in the roof. And I think that's the power of energy as a service that I think is often overlooked, especially with some utilities.
Chris and Nathan, you know where this lives and dies. If what I'm learning more and more is this lives and dies not just on the nature of the proposition and the things we're installing. It lives and dies on the finance mechanism of dealing with that upfront cost of the assets and the install, and how we then handle that cost in a way which is great for the end user, the customer, but also not onerous for the installer, not onerous for the manufacturer, not onerous for the energy retailer. So we're working closely. And you asked earlier, Nathan, were we working with particular companies? Yes, we were very careful in choosing those companies that were great to work with, had good quality products that we could easily optimize with via API. So those are Valent, Solar Edge, My Energy, and of course, Podero.
They used to sponsor me, My Energy. There's another thing, because obviously there's another place where this could fall down, and every utility is experiencing this. I know OVO did during the electrification of heat, because they contacted me about it. They were obviously monitoring all their heat pump systems going in under that scheme, and they weren't performing very well. And it's simply because there's a lot of the supply chain out there. They're definitely not all cowboys at all, but they're what I call unconscious incompetence. They want to do good work, but they just don't know exactly what good work is yet. They don't know what they don't know, which is why people contact me, because I own obviously the Guild of Master Heat Engineers, and if you ever need help from them in the future, let me know. But because a lot of people are having heat pump systems put in by very well-meaning, friendly SMEs or whoever they got to install it, and I'm talking about some of the larger companies as well. I won't name them. They're not being put in as optimally as possible, and that's not down to the fact that it's a struggle or it's disruptive to put them in as optimally as possible. It's just that they, the people that have put them in haven't kind of just known a few of the things. I mean, commissioning, for instance, it seems to be a big problem, and obviously as you or deploy more assets, you've got your batteries, your PV, and all this stuff. you kind of want it to be working all seamlessly all together. And orchestrating a team of people to come into someone's home and put all that stuff in. Well, trust me, I know it's challenging. And I imagine it's very challenging for you guys as a utility, because you've got to try and you want the best supply chain possible. And I do know them. There's obviously entities out there who are onboarding engineers and SMEs specifically to go to utilities to put stuff in. Because they talk to me as well about how do we get good engineers. So the engineering community out there is quite a heterogeneous community, because we've been a sole trader, self-employed industry since the early 80s. So that's had issues with how do we get, or how do we disseminate what best practices, what current best practices to this sort of disenfranchised heterogeneous industry. Way back in the 60s and 70s, it was a direct employed labour force, and you could really disseminate what good practice is very quickly. That's why we transitioned from town gas to methane very quickly in 10 years. But a lot of entities now are really struggling to get that good engineering background, and it's never down to qualifications or experience at all. So that's always going to be a challenge for everyone. I mean, but it's not a challenge that can't be overcome at all.
That's right. So I have an example. For the 18 homes, we used our own in-house installers at the time, and they did a great job. But it was a steep learning curve, because even though, of course, there was a heavy design process beforehand, particularly for the heat pumps, but also then the system as a whole, there were still learnings to be had, and we learned pretty quickly. But one of the things we tried to deal with was something pretty new for them, which was, of course, connecting the HEMS to the assets. And Podero kindly did a series of trainings for the installers, and Valent and Solar Edge also then got the installers to come and refresh their existing training. So we tried to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. But things like trying to it seems like it might be straightforward, but it's not as straightforward as you might think. And it's a new process for installers to learn when we're trying to connect to a platform like Podero's, and then also try and engage the customer in that process as well. So we're almost educating. In fact, it's a massive system of education for making sure that people are aware of the waterfall process of what needs to be, which type of asset type needs to be installed when during that 5-day period, and then also at the end of it on Thursday or the Friday, how that then they then need to support the customer in connecting to Podero. So the customer is being educated as well as the techs and engineers beforehand as well.
Yeah, definitely a big learning sort of curve for everyone, isn't it? Chris,
Yeah, and we're lucky to have I think we're lucky to have the same brands over and over again. So that there's sort of what we see in the field, when we work, with propositions where it's not so standardized. You see the craziest settings on especially heat pumps. For inverters and that and EVs it's usually not that bad. But there's some heat pumps where you will constantly have the heating rod running, right? And the cost, of course, then is astronomical. So the first thing that we can do remotely is just to make sure we use the system in a more efficient way. That's not even price optimization. Now in the case with EON Next, it's better because you have an installer on site. He checks these things, but sometimes it's the Wild West out there. Even in countries where you believe heat pumps are super established, like Sweden, where half the population heats with heat pumps.
Oh, they're super established here, Chris. We were putting them in before any other European country. I don't think people realise we have the biggest air-to-air commercial heat pump market in Europe, and we have done for decades. They've been going in for, well, my family have been putting in for nearly half a century. I just don't think people realise they're heat pumps. When they look up and they think, oh, it's an air conditioner, they don't realise it heats you as well.
Fair enough, yeah.
They've been going in for donkey's years, way before Sweden. But well, let's talk about other countries, because Chris, your company, I suppose, I mean, is it Austrian? Have I got that right?
Yeah, exactly. We're officially Austrian. We're active in 10 European countries.
Right. Okay.
Also, the team is from most European countries. So we're well distributed across the EPEX and Nord Pool price zones, so where you can trade on those markets.
And so you're doing this in other European countries. Are you doing it exactly kind of the same, or is it a bit different in different countries, what you're doing?
So of course the next proposition is unique, and that is energy as a service. A lot of the time we do sort of the Either we do you have a fixed tariff and there's a fixed price reduction. So say, you have connect your battery inverter and you save 120 pounds a year. That's sort of a fixed tariff, a fixed cost savings. We also, of course, sometimes do these the dynamic tariff optimizations where you connect your asset. You might have a dynamic, an hourly electricity contract, and then we basically steer the device optimally to save money there. So that is from Portugal to Italy, all the way to Estonia and Sweden, with everything in the middle. So we see all types of climates and all types of asset configurations that you can imagine. We're lucky that the European energy market is so standardized. So electricity trading works roughly the same in Sweden as it does in Portugal. And so from that, we can benefit a lot. Of course, the OEMs, the manufacturers are always a little bit different. But of course, the big ones are somewhat similar. So you'll find SolarEdge or Valent across Europe as well.
Hmm. I think another great advantage I think you guys have got. So obviously, let's say, I obviously can put heat pumps in, but I don't really know a lot about batteries. I don't really know a lot about solar. I definitely don't know a lot about EV. Now, for a customer that kind of likes all these different assets, having one company install them and be in charge of them, because obviously over this period you're going to be the ones maintaining them as well. So let's say anything went wrong, they only have to ring up one company. Whereas there's going to be a few customers out there, they might have had a company come in and put their solar, and then another company might have come in and put their battery in, another company might have come in and put their heat pump. Let's say something goes wrong. It's a bit of a nightmare for them to sometimes sort out. Whereas if one entity has done the whole lot and it's your energy supply, which I suppose helps, because they're the ones you're paying the bill to, um, it makes it a little bit. It's more of a stress-free thing. It's something I'd probably do. Because like I say, I don't know anything about batteries. I should do. I should learn more about them. But heating is my game. I can do that myself if I wanted to. But all the other things, I know good people to do it, obviously. But I think that would be quite an important proposition for many consumers, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad that you're the first customer for the MVP, Nathan. That's great. You're right that there's something kind of pleasing about the all-in-one. There's something kind of pleasing about the simplicity of coming to one person that you'll learn the name of, who will then coordinate everything for you and give you that. I'm sorry to keep repeating the same phrase, but that warm, comfortable home by installing whatever asset bundle is right for you. But having said that, in the future, as more and more companies launch products like this, there will, of course, come a time where there'll be a secondary market where a retailer will provide just a commodity, a still fixed rate commodity and service tariff, which is somehow separated from the finance deal on the assets. So customers will come and go between different companies, and then we'll just provide the commodity and service wrapper over the top. Now, that might mean then that we're recruiting customers who have existing assets or a part suite of existing assets, and we'll need to optimize with those customers as well. So they'll become a more complex marketplace where whilst it might be great for one person to install everything, in time, I think it will end up being a bit like hi-fis. I was listening to a podcast about hi-fis, how they developed over the years, and those at the top end like to get one module from Name, one from another company, one from Lin, and they build their bundle as they see fit. Now, whilst right now people might be able to build a bundle with us in the MVP, the next stage, in the future it'll happen naturally through market movements.
Well, I can tell you know your hi-fi, Zach, because you mentioned Lynn. That's my favourite record deck, the Lynn Son deck.
Perfect.
Well, yes. So I was going to say, so if someone has this and then they decide to move home, what sort of happens in that scenario? So let's say they've had all this installed and they move home 2 years down the road. So what's the process there?
It's a great question. And of course, we've done quite a lot of research into it. And of the people we've researched and also the research we've found, I'm afraid it's a win-win situation for different parties. The first one is the homeowner that's selling their house. The research that we've done shows that depending on the scale of where they are across the period of their next gen home, if it's a 10-year journey, 10-year journey, but the value of the assets do increase the value of the home, particularly if they
Hmm.
can demonstrate a stable and good value bill behind it to the incoming buyer. For the incoming buyer, it means the asset cost is paid off in the sale of the house. So they come in, they have no asset pay down. So we just provide a commodity and service wrapper over the top, which is optimized. So therefore, it's a low bill home for them. So the buyer comes into a low bill home, the seller doesn't lose money on the house sale by selling the assets with it.
Mm,
And
I,
and in the
mm.
terms and conditions, they can of course leave whenever they want. We're not going to restrict them by saying you have to stay in your house for 10 years.
I had Ryan on from the Green Finance Institute last week, and we were both, like in the future, homes that have got this kind of technology are going to be able to command more of a premium price, I imagine, aren't they? As we sort of move towards the transition.
Yeah, I hope so.
And obviously, with your package, you've got maintenance. I should imagine. I mean, that's another thing. I suppose it takes the onus off the homeowner thinking, right, well, who do I get to do my yearly service on the heat? I mean, because not every installation outfit out there is doing so. I don't understand why, but they're not. Whereas obviously you guys are going to do your own maintenance packages, aren't you? And I presume you're monitoring the systems as well, aren't you? So you can preempt situations if you think there's a situation coming up.
Yeah, for sure. So, next to the interfaces for end users, so for the consumers, we have an interface for Zach and his colleagues, so they can, look at the telemetry data, so they can look at the monitoring data, see what's going on for the heat pump, for example. You can see the temperatures, you can see the operational modes. There's, about 50 parameters that would be available as well, if you need them. In some cases, the installer has a separate platform by the OEM. That's something we see in a lot of other countries where then Valent provides an OEM platform itself. But of course, the consumer will often call the utility first and say, "Hey, I see this happening in my house. Are you seeing this too? What should I do?" And so it's important for the customer service and customer support people at E.ON to see, what's going on in real time, and then say, "Well, that's something we can fix. We can, change this parameter. We can, contact the installer for you. We can ask Podero what's going on in case in case we can fix it." And it's nice to have one place where we fuse all the data together in the customer support tooling.
And in terms of the servicing itself, yes, in the 18-person trial, there's a yearly heat pump service, which is part of that fixed price. In the 300 plus MVP that we're building now, I think there's something more we can do linked to the visibility that I mentioned earlier. Customers definitely want, and that's yes, heat pump service, but also why not quarterly updates on things like battery health
Hmm.
or other asset health, or how things are being optimized, and be more proactive in sharing with customers how their assets are performing.
Hmm. What's the if I was to ask you, what's the biggest learning you've had so far from your 18 people trial or 18 home trial? What
Yeah,
that
I
specifically shocked you or surprised you that you probably weren't thinking about, maybe?
there's two sides. There's one which is I guess a customer learning, and it's not that technical, and that is that people appear to love it.
Hmm.
I mean, it's quite a big change in the way that people use energy in their homes. It's quite a big
Hmm.
change in the way that people pay for their energy. It's maybe a little bit of a mindset shift. God, I can't get my tongue around that word today. But the second learning is more of a personal one, and that is it is significantly more complicated than even I anticipated. And I know the listeners can't see me, but you can, Nathan. And if you look at my face, I'm only 21 years old. But surely the best things to go after are difficult,
Well,
and
it
that's
will
why they're
be
worth it.
complex. It will be complex to start with, and then as over time, as time goes on, you're going to learn, the learnings generally engender things like, oh yeah, yeah, but that seems quite simple now. Now that we know,
Yeah.
we were talking about different property types, and can you get your assets into these different property types, specifically heat pumps? Are you obviously most our country tends to always when it talks about heat pumps air to water, despite the fact we like to say we've got the biggest air to air commercial market in Europe. Um, would you consider things like ground loops? So where people, as you will know, you're probably talking to them. There's companies out there that can do boreholes and then provide heat to some houses in a row, for instance. Is that something you'd consider?
In the future, yes.
Hmm.
For residential homes in the short term, it's not part of our suite of products we're looking at, but we are looking at not
Social
ground loops.
housing sector would probably work better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think probably yes. And of course, we do have within the business heat networks that we might be able to build something with. We do have other heating options generally, but for the retrofit resi area, I think the general direction is heat pumps and or other low carbon heat that we mentioned before, like the smaller heat pumps with no external unit, or let's go out there infrared matting or something like that. So I will consider a range of things, and ground loops are something I will reconsider, um, but it's not part of my current roadmap.
Mm. And things like air to air. I mean, there was some social housing near to where I was living, and the they put external wall insulation on a sort of all these rows of houses, which would have cost an absolute fortune. They only had one kitchen, one living room, and one bedroom. Now I could heat that whole property with one mini split, one 4 kilowatt mini split that cost 400 quid.
Mhm.
That's it. And like again, people just didn't really. I mean, people are starting to learn about air to air now, and I know I talked to Desnes about it, and people like Nesta. But yeah, they spent thousands and thousands and thousands. The work wouldn't have been done very well, good anyway, as we're all now learning. A lot of this external wall insulation goes on willy-nilly and causes more problems than it's actually trying to alleviate. But yeah, I mean, air to air would work quite seamlessly as well. And of course, obviously, we've got people wishing they would have air to air at the moment because for them 5 days of heat that we all overheating, it's going to pull that heat out, and that could all be run on batteries and solar
Yeah,
and your car battery.
yeah. Nathan, it sounds like you and I are going to have to talk offline about lots of options as well.
We should do, and I can definitely help with your supply chain. Even if I have some of my guild engineers go out and just look at what's been done, and then just because they've done that with Bristol City Council. So Bristol City Council had 100 MCS installs audited by MCS, and then one of my guild engineers went out and told them what actually needed to be done and rectified. Because it's the problem in our industry, and understandably, when everyone came into all this, like when you utilities all came into it, it was understandable that everyone thought, right, if you're qualified and accredited, you know what you're doing. And that was far, far from the case, which is why all the heat pump trials, you go back to the Energy Savings Trust heat pump trials, 2009, 2011, and the electrification heat trials, the average seasonal performance of those assets wasn't great. And, like I say, it wasn't because cowboys were putting them, it's just that people just didn't really know what they kind of could know. And it doesn't take a lot to get them to know it either. But people are now starting to realise that that's a bit of a challenge. Getting a real good skilled supply chain is one of the big challenges. I mean, obviously,
Mm.
Chris, you've got your challenges because that's all coding and geeky stuff and technology, which I understand nothing about, but it all sounds quite exciting. What are you allowed to work with other energy companies, or is it just you're just exclusive working with E.ON, or?
Yeah, well, great question. I guess we work at E.ON in a number of countries. We're allowed to work with other companies, of course. Zach being our preferred customer over all others. Yeah, but there's always sort of for startups the question of exclusivity. But I think the important thing that we achieved with Next Energy Home, but also of course with some other customers in other countries, is to be first in the market, to have the widest possible range of compatible options. If even if it is um, Zach will decide, well, we'll install this OEM for heat pumps and this for inverters. It's great to have 10 other options available, just so we can offer the broadest possible range of solutions to then offer a standardized product. So that instead of we're trying to always find solutions for utilities that are sort of mass market already, and not sort of bespoke. It will work for two homes, but to really use trials like this as well to figure out what can you scale to, as Zach mentioned before, 700,000 homes.
How did you get into the industry, Chris? I mean, I presume you're a coder, I presume, aren't you? You're one of the computer experts. I mean, how did you sort of venture into the energy sector?
Yeah. Well, I studied physics, and then I learned how to code at university, and just doing side projects. And then I founded a company in the supply chain space, basically also analyzing data and making decisions. And then, like all of us, at some point we were hooked on energy, trying to figure out how we could use more low carbon energy, sort of in a profitable way, because I believe that it's sort of the thing that really drew me into the field was that you could build a solution that would be sort of cheaper cost, but also lower CO2 emissions. And I believe if you don't have, if you don't win on the cheaper cost side as well, then it won't be adopted by the whole world. It will maybe a few people who want to do something good, but it needs to be adopted globally and worldwide and by the majority of the population. And sort of that's what got me hooked in energy. I don't code anymore, sadly enough. I mostly do talking now. But now and then I get to interact with the product. I'm testing it myself, of course, every day. So that's the most fun I get to have. Yeah, next to those podcasts, of course.
Are you guys at any of the shows? Have you been at any of the shows this year, Zach, or are you going to be at any of the shows, the events that are in the energy space?
Well, for my part, we don't exhibit at many of them. We exhibited at Innovation Zero,
Hmm.
but I generally turn up and do panels and talks at Utility Week, Future of Utilities, and
Mm.
various other well-known. I also often just turning up and talking to as many people as possible at Solar and Storage, Future Build,
Mm.
and various other UK conferences as well.
Mm. Now, the batteries. What was the brand of batteries you guys use?
Solar Edge.
Solar Edge. Now, obviously, again, I don't know anything about batteries. We've had a particular manufacturer don't exist now, do they? Which I suppose is may have put some customers off battery technology in their homes. If that happens to them with a particular brand, I mean, I suppose again your solution mitigates that because you're a utility company. People, if it did go bust, a particular battery company you're using, you're scaled up to sort of deal with that, aren't you?
That's true. And as Chris said, there's the monitoring that we can do throughout as well. But having said that, before we engage with any supplier, particularly batteries, we go through, regardless of the testing that manufacturers had already, we have our own lab where we go through extensive and lengthy testing of those units as well.
Mm, mm,
And that's from multiple angles. That's from the performance and other measures of the battery, but also then how, for example, the API works with Podero. So that
mm.
goes through extensive testing in the lab as well, which we did with Solar Edge.
Chris,
Yeah,
do
so the
you,
lucky thing is, oh sorry, no, the lucky thing is working with like huge companies like E.ON is that they have significant ability to sway those
yeah.
OEMs. So
Mm,
we actually signed a couple of contracts through the introductions of Zach and his team because it is a lot easier to talk to Solar Edge if you're coming with E.ON than if you're coming alone. So that usually helps. And then of course we go through all the testing. It's also nice to have test devices, but it's really hard to test things on a theoretical level without actually measuring the response, without measuring the data. So that is we have to do this from all physical angles, but also from all sort of software digital angles.
I mean, I imagine the German R&D team at Valent are quite enthusiastic because R&D engineers are really very enthusiastic people. I mean, once you get to the sort of the senior leadership team, which is sales and marketing, unfortunately, it's not their fault, I suppose, they don't tend to understand too much about their own technology, whereas the R&D engineers really, really do. And I mean, do you work quite closely with them, or is it just a case you get the API and away you go?
Mm. Well, the interesting thing is the supplier has sort of different incentives than maybe Zach and I, in that they want to sell the most amount of devices, right? And sort of Zach wants to sell energy, kilowatt hours, and I want to sell software traditionally, right? But now with the sort of next energy home, we have a solution where we fulfill sort of all our three needs in a perfect way to offer something that's better to customers than a standard product, where the supplier gets to sell a device. They also get to ensure that the usage of the device is better than normal over the duration of the term. And for that reason, it's quite easy to work together with them, right? If you can't sort of show that you'll increase their sales numbers, then you may be in a situation where the supplier will ask, well, why should I do it? Is this really good for me? Will I not get more customer support tickets? But more and more now, the OEMs have realized that if they don't offer any, interface for optimization, that they will left behind by
Yeah.
by the vast majority of suppliers who now do it. So we're seeing this shift in sentiment over the last 2-3 years to where now it's quite easy. But like the beginning was quite challenging.
Mm, yeah, I imagine.
And just
Mm,
speaking about R&D generally, one of the things that I do speak to both Valent and Solar Edge particularly about is how we can, we're not all trying, we're all facing in the same direction.
mm,
Not just, I mean, all of us in the energy space, we're all generally facing the same direction. We want the same sort of things.
mm,
And one of the things I'm keen to do with particularly Valent and Solar Edge, but all manufacturers as well, is to share, maybe in general terms, but share where our product roadmaps are going just in case there are synergies or things we should be working on together, or in this specific case, something which might unlock a better feature of next gen home next year that would be good for our customers. So the closer we can work with all those organizations and their R&D teams, the better.
Is there anything, Chris, you'd like to? Is there anything you'd like a heat pump to be able to do that it can't do yet? Talking
Oh,
from
well,
a
thank you, Nathan, for asking. Now I have my wish list that I prepared together with Zach before the call. No, I guess for in order to, so there's two ways to control an asset like a heat pump, right? You can either say I'll control it by best efficiency, and that's very reasonable if you pay the same amount of pounds per kilowatt hour or pence per kilowatt hour throughout the day. But that's of course not the reality of today's energy system. Today you pay a vast difference in at noon versus at maybe 8, 9 at night. And so the best efficiency model of running a heat pump is no longer is sort of outdated, right? Because you need to optimize for lowest cost curve. And that's sort of the service that we provide together with E.ON. Now, the tricky thing is that the heat pump's parameters are still geared towards efficiency. You see a lot of information about temperatures, about operating modes, whereas we care about what is the specific energy quantity that you can add to the system at which time, and when do you have sort of an excess in energy that is already delivered, or you have a deficit which you have to catch up to. And so if there's one thing we'd like to see from OEMs is that we could have more granular information of how much heat a building needs at what time, and how much heat it can defer to maybe 2 hours later, because that is the basis on which we optimize and which we trade, on which we then generate the savings for the end users and make the proposition work. And so moving towards from efficiency to sort of keeping that that cost curve and the energy required to hit that cost curve in mind. It's a very technical request, but it makes a big difference.
Well, I'm sure they'll accommodate you. Have you guys chatted to Mick Wall? So Mick Wall has been a guest on my podcast a few times. He's got his own podcast now, and he's a consumer, but he's a geek. He's a computer type. He works at the Sheffield University doing their IT systems, and he's got a Valent system. He writes brilliant blog posts about it. He's got battery and solar as well. He come up with this sort of soundbite, the Holy Trinity, where the heat pump and solar and the battery all work together. But he's got incredible data on his systems. He'd be good for you to chat to, Chris and Zach. And he runs he's going to kill me for not remembering. He does something where he analyzes octopuses data, time of tariff use and stuff like that. He's quite well known now in the sector, and he's a lovely gentleman. But he's got so much information around the particular units you're using and how they are working with batteries and solar. He'd be a good person to. Well, you could go on his podcast as well. He's just started his own one. He manages to get his on YouTube as well. He's more technically adept than me. I'll just stick to heating. Well, gentlemen, it's been great having you on. It sounds like an exciting little project you're involved in, Zach. I'm sure you're enjoying it. And then you've got your 18 people trial, home trial, it obviously continues. And when are you going to hope to sort of scale up to your 300 one? Is that next year or later this year?
Maybe towards the very end of this year.
Yeah.
But we've got to think about the optimal time to install as well.
Yeah.
And Christmas time is not the best time. So probably not before December, but the general gist is as soon as I can.
And I suppose what you've got loads of customers, haven't you? I suppose what you put out a little calling and ask who's interested, don't you? And then you can choose on different archetypes of homes, because obviously you want your test to be able to sort of test all sorts of things, don't you?
Exactly that. We want to be very targeted in the types of customers that we go through. So we will put out a proactive call, not just to our own customers, but generally as well. And whilst I've said it's 300 plus, it'll be the right number of customers to give us a representative sample of some people who are keen, some people who are less keen, and also it might be more than 300, who knows? But all that planning is going on right now.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great having you on, gentlemen. I hope you're going to go away and enjoy this glorious weather we've got, but don't get burnt. Thank you for coming on, Chris, and thank you for coming on, Zach.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you.